Hi there, and welcome back to Fedmail. Thank you for joining us for this special on-the-road edition of Fedmail. Here we are at Washington's headquarters in Newburgh, New York, where in 1783, at the end of the Revolutionary War, George Washington gave what I believe to be his best speech. And the focus of it, the fundamental message was unity and the importance of it. Look, the soldiers had just sacrificed so much fighting this bloody, very, very difficult revolution against England, of course. We just celebrated the 249th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And some of those troops thought that they should mutiny, fight back against Congress that was late paying their bills, paying their salaries, in fact. And George Washington stood before them, removing his glasses, talking about how each of them had sacrificed so much and not to give that up now, and the importance of unity. And again, 249 years later, that message probably rings more important, more true than it ever has in our nation's history. So glad I can be here today. Sadie is dancing in the Hudson Valley, so that's why we are on this little road trip. But George Washington's headquarters right here overlooking the Hudson River. Glad I can deliver that message. A lot went on in the world this week. First of all, the floods down in Texas, heart-wrenching to hear the stories of those camps that were washed away, all of those young lives lost. Our partners at the Jewish Federation of Greater Austin have put out a message. You can read it below in this edition of Fedmail, and they are collecting funds for an emergency campaign to help out with relief efforts. I encourage you to consider giving to those, and there is a link below. Also in Israel this week, there were a number of very tragic deaths. First of all, several IDF soldiers were ambushed in Gaza. They were killed. There was also one soldier who was nearly abducted. He fought off his would-be captors and was killed in the ensuing firefight. And there was a terror attack at the Etzion Junction, where 2 Palestinian Authority police officers took part in this terror attack. So tragic week in so many ways, and I'm heartbroken certainly over the loss of life, whether it's in Israel or in Texas. Also this week, we saw Prime Minister Netanyahu visit the White House to discuss the ceasefire negotiations, and the proposal on the table right now is for a 60-day ceasefire that would see the release of 10 living hostages, a number of the remains of hostages who have been killed in captivity, along with the release of a very large number of Palestinian prisoners being held in Israel. So that is yet to be signed. They're still trying to iron out some of the details related to the IDF locations within Gaza. Hamas is pushing to see the IDF removed from the southern part of Gaza, where Rafah is, and that Egyptian border, and the Morad corridor, which separates the north and south quadrants, or parts of Gaza. Gaza is now operated in different sectors, which is how the military typically conducts their operations. Also this week, there was renewed pressure on the humanitarian distribution efforts within Gaza. There was another incident purported incident while children were trying to get supplements. This comes on the heels of a number of shootings that took place at these humanitarian aid sites. And so the pressure is on right now to get that right, and to make sure that more aid is getting into Gaza, which it was announced this week that more trucks would be taking part in that. Also this week, there was a major vote by the NEA, which is the country's largest teachers union. They decided to vote to break ties with the ADL. This was huge news. And now it will be pushed up to the executive committee, I believe, for their vote. But the membership voted against continuing with their partnership with the ADL that provides really essential framework for curriculum related to Holocaust and genocide studies. So this was big news, and has implications in Massachusetts as well. Also in Massachusetts, there was a committee formed by the state to combat anti-Semitism. They've been meeting over the last 6 months to come up with a framework for how better to combat anti-Semitism in K-12 schools. They just released their finding this week, and you can find out more information about that. And we will be putting out more information about that, I should say, in upcoming Fedmail episodes. Also this week, the Secretary of State of the United States, Marco Rubio, announced sanctions against the UN Special Rapporteur for the Occupied Territories, Francesca Albanese. That is her title. She had put out a number of tweets over the last 20 months condemning Israel, but some of that was read as justification for the October 7th attacks, justifying Hamas's attacks on Israel. So sanctions were announced, and that also created a big uproar. Of course, a lot of people are concerned about that as well. Also this week, the Diner report came out, which outlined and went into detail about Hamas's use of sexual violence on October 7th against women. That means a lot to us. We talked about that. Hadassah and Federation last spring had an event at the JCC where we invited community members to take part in a program that discussed this, bringing to light the fact that Hamas perpetrated these vicious acts of sexual violence against Israeli women on October 7th. And in the aftermath of that, in the wake of our program, the Telegram and Gazette put out some material, basically a report, not a report, but a story on our event. And one of the local anti-Israel activists, who really serves as a mouthpiece in many ways for a number of local political leaders, condemned our event, saying that sexual violence didn't happen. Well, in fact, it did. We knew that it did then, and this report, this Diner report, certainly brings that all to light. So in a way, it feels like vindication. I wish it wasn't true. I wish that these sexual attacks hadn't happened on October 7th, but the fact that we reported them is the fact that they did happen, and we reported it, we held an event about it, and then we were ridiculed about it, I think really serves just as one anecdote in a very long line of offenses from the anti-Israel community aimed at undermining even the victims of the rapes during October 7th. So I find that to be deplorable, and I know that a number of you do as well. So again, a lot went on this week. You can read all about it. There's always time to catch up. Maybe not enough time to catch up on the news, I should say. But coming up, I want to let you know of a few things taking place in the community. First of all, there is a great yacht event coming up this weekend. I think they're going to be playing mini golf in Auburn. And B'nai Shalom has a great jazz night coming up on the 18th, so you don't want to miss that as well. And there's a special thank you to Nancy Greenberg, who from the JCC, who is retiring shortly. So they wanted to hold a night to celebrate Nancy Greenberg. I think that's terrific. It's awesome. It's been great to work with Nancy. And I want to say thank you to all of you who have supported our local community during these difficult and challenging times. That means a lot. It's great to have your partnership and support. You know, we do have a wonderful community, and thankfully we have that ever important fact, which is our unity. So thank you for being a united, good, and supportive Jewish community. I wish you a good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, and bye-bye.